Long ago, in the quiet land of Omigba, where the winds carried whispers and the moon rose like a shy child, a young woman named Ndali arrived, her heart heavy and her bag light. She had come from a distant town, seeking a fresh beginning and a place to rest her head. But by the time the sun had tucked itself beneath the hills, Ndali had knocked on every wooden door along the dusty paths, only to be turned away. "No room," they said. "Nothing left," they muttered. Her throat was dry, her feet sore, and as the sky darkened, fear began to wrap its cold fingers around her chest. With trembling legs, she sat on a worn-out rock by the roadside and wept, her tears falling quietly into the red earth. Then came a voice, calm and curious. "You lost, sister?" Ndali looked up and saw a young man, barely older than her, dressed in a simple white kaftan and slippers made from old car tires. His name, he said, was Ogbeni, and his voice carried the tone of someone who smiled often. "I'm looking for a room," Ndali whispered. Ogbeni paused, then rubbed the back of his neck. "I do know of a place. But there's a condition," he said, eyes now serious. "You must stay in that house for 2 full seasons, no leaving until the time has passed." Ndali blinked. 2 seasons. "Yes," Ogbeni said. "It is the only room left." The wind whistled through the trees. The sky was now a deep indigo, and fear of the night was far worse than fear of a strange rule. So she nodded. "I'll take it," Ndali whispered, her voice low but sure. They followed a winding, narrow footpath that twisted through dry, crackling bushes and buzzing insects. The path led them toward the farthest edge of the village, a forgotten corner where even stray goats refused to wander. There, hidden in silence, stood an old house leaning tiredly to one side. Its walls were bruised by time, and its windows looked like hollow eyes staring into nothing. Not a single lantern flickered. The compound was covered in shadows. A single black rooster tied lazily to a wooden stick sat completely still, watching with eyes that seemed to understand too much. Inside the house the air was thick and heavy, filled with the scent of dust and secrets. An old woman appeared, and from the darkness, her skin looked like dried tree bark, layered with age. Her eyes were dark and unreadable, like stones left at the bottom of a river for years. Her mouth barely moved. She didn't smile. She didn't greet. Ogbeni simply said, "This is Mama Kofi." Mama Kofi didn't reply. Without a word, she turned around slowly and disappeared deeper into the house, her feet making soft brushing sounds against the floor. Ogbeni led Ndali to a room at the end of a narrow corridor. The door creaked as it opened. Inside was a thin, raffia mat laid on the floor, a small wooden bed pushed to the corner, and walls that were stained with old stories and silent years. But to Ndali, sunburnt, exhausted and aching, it felt like a hidden paradise. As she looked around, trying to catch her breath, Ogbeni held out a heavy, rusty iron key and said again, "You must not leave before 2 seasons end, no matter what happens." He placed the key gently into her palm, then turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the quiet of the room. A room that would soon become more than just a place to sleep. Ndali didn't bother to unpack. She collapsed into the bed, her muscles aching like she had wrestled the earth itself. Sleep took her like a wave, pulling her underwater. When she awoke, the rooster had begun to crow. Her head throbbed, though she had slept like a stone. It was her first day at the Gary pressing shed, and she didn't want to be late. As she stepped into the corridor, she bumped into Mama Kofi. The old woman's eyes lingered too long on Ndali's face. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, her voice like dry corn husks rubbing together. "Yes, Mama," Ndali said with a nervous smile. Mama Kofi simply nodded and vanished into her room. Ndali hurried down the road, whispering to herself, "That woman gives me chills." The day was long. Her arms ached from pounding cassava, her clothes soaked with sweat and dust. When evening came, she dragged herself to the market to buy a bowl of yam porridge and crayfish. As she walked through the stalls, a woman she didn't know brushed past her, grabbed her wrist and whispered urgently, "Leave that house before it's too late." Ndali turned, shocked. "Why? What do you mean?" But the woman had already vanished into the crowd. Her heart raced. What did she mean? Why warn her? Shaken, Ndali returned home, found the house empty, ate quickly and fell into her bed. That night the air in her room changed. It was as if the walls had begun to breathe. The lamp flickered, though no wind blew. And just before midnight, Ndali stirred awake, her mouth dry, her heart uneasy. Then her eyes caught movement near the door, a shadow, slipping silently into the room, and then she saw it. A sleek black cat with eyes glowing like burning coal perched on her windowsill. It stared at her, unblinking. Ndali froze. Her blood turned to ice. How had it entered? The window was shut, and the door had not moved. Before she could scream, the cat darted across the room and vanished into thin air. A scream tore from her chest. She trembled, her blanket clutched to her neck, her eyes wide with fear. The room felt heavy, as if something still lingered. She sat awake till dawn, jumping at every sound. The next morning her face looked pale like dust, her eyes red from no sleep. She dragged herself to work. Her hands were slow, her back bent. The others whispered, "Is she sick?" "She looks haunted." After the shift, she walked to the market again and saw Ogbeni, the one who brought her. To the house, she rushed to him. "There was a cat in my room last night. It disappeared. Something is wrong." Ogbeni looked at her, unimpressed. "Ah, you city girls and your stories. You probably dreamed it." "I didn't," she cried. But he was already walking away, shaking his head, and Ndali returned to the house, feeling smaller than ever. She locked her door, sat on her mat, and hummed the lullaby her late mother used to sing during thunderstorms. That night, the air thickened again, her body tired, her mind restless. Ndali finally drifted into sleep, but it was not peaceful. She found herself lying in a pit in the forest. Dark soil covered her legs, hands, cold, rough, were throwing sand on her chest. She tried to scream, but no voice came. She tried to run, but her legs refused to obey. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped drum, and just as the dirt reached her neck, Ndali woke, her shirt soaked in sweat, her fingers shaking. It had felt too real to be just a dream. The morning came heavy and strange in the land of Omigba. The skies held a thick silence, and the birds near Mama Kofi's compound refused to sing. Ndali rose from her mat, her eyes burning from another restless night. But something else now filled the air, something worse than fear. It was a smell, sharp and putrid, creeping like smoke under the door and settling in her nostrils. She gagged and rushed to the corner, covering her mouth with the edge of her wrapper. She flung open her door. The corridor was empty, but the stench was strong, thick and sour, like rotting flesh mixed with burnt pepper and mildew. She walked from one end of the house to the other, her eyes darting from wall to wall, nose crinkled, trying to locate where it was coming from. Nothing. The smell seemed to follow her like a shadow. Unable to bear it, Ndali stepped outside into the open air and made her way to the factory. Her mind, however, did not leave the odor that haunted her. At the factory gates, workers paused and looked her way. Some covered their noses, others whispered. She walked through the crowd with her head lowered, eyes fixed on the dusty ground, pretending not to hear the voices, but the whispers chased her like hungry flies, growing sharper, louder, more cruel with each step. Laughter buzzed behind her back, and every giggle felt like a thorn in her skin. By the time she reached her station, her chest was already tight. And then the supervisor came toward her with a stiff jaw and eyes that avoided hers. "Ndali," he said, his tone cold and final, "you have to leave." She blinked, confused. What do you mean?" His face didn't soften. "You smell," he said plainly without hesitation. "Go home. Clean yourself. Come back another day." The words struck her like stones. She smelled. For a moment she stood frozen, her heart stumbling in her chest. Then, as the weight of the humiliation hit her, her face burned with shame. People were watching now. She didn't wait for more words. Slowly, she took a step back, then another, and then she turned and ran down the red path, past the curious eyes, past the tall palm trees that lined the edge of the village, back to the lonely house where no one waited. Inside, she attacked the scent like an enemy. She scrubbed her body raw with hard soap and rough charcoal. She boiled lemongrass in a clay pot and let the steam rise around her, breathing it in like medicine. She opened the tiny bottle of sacred oil her mother had once pressed into her hand and poured it gently over her skin. She whispered prayers with every drop, but it didn't help. No matter how hard she tried, the foul scent clung to her like a shadow. It was in her hair, her clothes, her very skin. It was as if the shame had seeped into her soul. At last, exhausted and trembling, she curled up on her raffia mat, pulled her knees to her chest, and wept. Long, shaking sobs that only the cracked walls and silent night could hear. That night the walls of her room groaned. The lamp flickered, and every creak, every hiss, every silence was louder than thunder. She did not sleep. Instead, she thought about the woman in the market, the one who had warned her, then disappeared. "I must find her," she whispered, to herself. "She knows." When dawn painted the sky with pale light, Ndali dressed in haste. She tied her scarf, wrapped herself tightly and went out, ignoring the stares of those who smelled her coming. She searched all corners of Omigba, the yam stalls, the waterside, the bush path behind the community square. Nothing. The woman was nowhere. As the sun climbed higher, her body weakened. Her feet ached. She sat by a small shop and wept quietly. The people around her moved away. Even the goats would not come near. Then, from behind the shop curtain, a woman emerged, her face stern, her eyes bright with recognition. Ndali looked up, their eyes locked. "It's you," Ndali breathed. The woman nodded once. "I've been looking for you," Ndali said, her voice cracking like dry wood. "Please, tell me what's happening to me." The woman walked closer. Her name was Ijako, and her presence felt like rain after a long drought. She sat beside Ndali, unbothered by the smell, and held her hand. "Your landlady," she said softly, "is not of this world." Ndali's heart jumped. "She is a woman. By day," Ijako continued, "but by midnight her spirit sheds its skin and takes the form of something else." What do you mean?" Ijako's voice was steady, like someone who had rehearsed this pain 100 times. "I lived in that house once," she said. "Many years ago. I too saw the black cat. I too lost my sleep. But unlike the others, I escaped." "Others?" Ndali whispered. "All who lived in that house before you are dead, one by one. Their families don't speak of it anymore. The elders keep silent. But I saw it. I know it." Ndali's body trembled. "She feeds on your spirit," Ijako continued. "She drains you, that smell. It is her mark. It means she has begun her work." Ndali's chest tightened. "Then what do I do? Please, I don't want to die." Ijako looked around, then leaned close and whispered words that made Ndali's skin crawl. "You must confront her, not the woman, the creature she becomes, and you must stop her from returning to her body." Ndali's eyes widened. "How?" Ijako reached into her satchel and pulled out a small pouch made of cowrie shells and dark red cloth. "When you see her spirit form, sprinkle this on her. It will freeze her. Then move her human body. Hide it. Break the link." Ndali swallowed hard. Her palms were sweaty. Her heart pounded like a village drum. "You must be awake at midnight." Ijako said, "You must be brave." Ndali nodded slowly. She had no choice. That night the wind carried no breeze. The moon disappeared behind dark clouds. The night animals refused to sing. Ndali sat in her room, clutching the pouch, eyes fixed on the door. Her body trembled, but she did not lie down. The clock on the wall ticked. One breath, another, and then a sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The door creaked open. Though she had locked it, a dark shadow slid across the floor. It moved like mist, like smoke, like evil itself. The black cat slipped into the room like a shadow with a heartbeat. Its fur was dark as wet coal, sleek and glistening in the dim light. But it wasn't just a cat, and not fully. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural golden fire, steady and ancient, like something that had seen too many worlds. A strange shimmer danced across its body, like smoke trying to remember its form. It moved like a whisper between life and something darker, and Ndali's breath caught in her chest. Her hands began to shake. She stepped back, fear crackling up her spine. Then, with a sudden burst of courage, she flung the powder she had hidden. In her wrapper, the powder exploded mid-air, a burst of grey and orange like ash tossed into firelight. It scattered into the air with a hiss. The cat stopped instantly. Its paw hung mid-step, its mouth open in a half-snarl, muscles stiff, still as stone. Its glowing eyes stayed fixed on her, unblinking, alive, aware, but frozen. Ndali didn't dare breathe. Then she ran. Her feet slapped the dusty floor as her heart pounded like a festival drum. She raced down the narrow corridor to Mama Kofi's chamber, her mind spinning, her body trembling. Inside, the old woman lay motionless, her thin arms at her sides, eyes closed, her face calm but eerily blank, like a mask carved from quiet. Ndali knelt beside her and grabbed her frail frame. Her own hands trembled as she began to drag the body, first across the room, then to the corridor, inch by inch, breath by breath, until Mama Kofe's body lay in the very center of the hallway, the place marked long ago with chalk and whispers. And then it happened. From behind her, from the room she had just escaped, a sound shattered the silence, a scream, but not a scream of a woman, not of a cat. It was something between the two, and something else entirely. It was a sound made of pain, fury, and release. It echoed like 1,000 voices breaking apart at once, the wail of something ancient being ripped from its anchor in the world. And, as it rose and filled the air, Ndali knew the binding had worked. She ran back, heart pounding. The cat was gone. The air was still. The smell gone. Her skin felt clean, her chest light, her head clear. By morning, Mama Kofi's body was found, lifeless, her mouth open as if gasping for her own return. The news spread through Omigba like wildfire. No tears were shed. No one came to mourn. The elders insisted she be buried far away, deep in the forbidden forest, where the wind did not blow, and even spirits feared to linger. Ndali packed her few belongings and went to Ijako's shop. She bowed low and said, "You saved me. May the spirits of light always guard your path." Ijako smiled, but said nothing. Some stories do not need words to end. Ndali left Omigba that same day. She returned to her people in the hills of Mecca, where the rivers were clear and the mango trees sang in the wind. There she healed. And every evening as the sun slipped away, behind the tall mountains, she would sit outside her mother's hut, watching the fireflies dance, grateful to be alive because she had stared evil in the eye and won. Even in the darkest places, where secrets sleep and shadows watch, courage can be found in the most broken hearts. Ndali didn't have wealth, strength, or power, but she had bravery. She faced the unknown, even when her world turned against her. And in doing so, she reminded us that sometimes the things that haunt us the most are the very things we were born to overcome. True strength is not about what you carry. It's about what you refuse to let break you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful African tales that stir your soul and spark your imagination. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a story, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ndali's place?